Here we go, here we go. Boom, there it is. Aluva Talks is back, baby. And today we're talking all about the DeFi industry. Learning from Gen 1 DeFi games, what can we carry into Gen 2 DeFi games like Illuvium? How do you build DeFi communities? How is it unique? And of course, how do we get to mass adoption with DeFi? Or is that going to happen at all? And the way that we figure these questions out is by bringing in the most stacked panel on the internet. Starting first with somebody who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. And this man is the creator of the Loot Squad, a content creator helping Web3 organizations build and scale organic community. One of the big personalities out there in our space. Brycent, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, what's up, Andrew? Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure when I get to chat with the Aluva fam, and I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. And of course, we've got other folks on the panel as well. We've got Illuvium's community manager. Do you know his name? His name is Rich, and here he is on camera. What's up, Rich? Welcome to the show.
How's it going, guys? Glad to be here. It's been a long time coming, and Andrew finally made me do it, so here I am.
I finally made him do it, so I made him get on camera. There's nobody I can think of that knows more about DeFi community building than Brycent and Rich, so I wanted to get them both on the show to talk about this topic today, both from a game studio perspective, and then, of course, as a content creator out there building communities. And then, of course, our final guest to bring that ice-cold corporate perspective to everything is Charles Jansen, who's the head of, get this corporate title, are you ready for this? He's the head of DeFi transformation at S&P Global Ratings. And this is a part of $1 billion megacorp that's a publisher of financial research and analysis. The heavy hitters are here today. Charles, what's up, buddy?
All good. Happy to be here. Yeah, 125 billion in market cap and interested in DeFi, not just me, but at the company level. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, of course. All right. So let's go over this agenda, everybody, because it is going to be interesting. Today, it's all about the GameFi industry. We're covering Gen 1 DeFi games, DeFi community building, how we get to mass adoption, and of course, a live Q&A. So any questions you have as audience members, bring them to us and we'll answer them live. And there is an audio version of this show available on literally every podcasting platform. Just go to illuvium.buzzsprout.com, pick your podcasting platform, we edit it, and make it super clean for you to enjoy on these platforms. Go do that. Go follow, especially on Spotify right now. And it goes without saying, we're going to talk about fun stuff that we're passionate about, DeFi, gaming, etc. But nothing we're saying today is financial advice. So if you think what we're saying is financial advice, you're wrong. This is just research materials that maybe you could use to learn about NFTs, gaming in our space. And I'm glad you're learning. But we are not telling you to buy or sell anything on this show. And of course, if you have not already, go to illuvium.io/illuvatars to build your Illuvatar today. You know what I'm going to do. Play the trailer, of course. Enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
I could watch it like 500 times. In fact, literally, I have. Perfect. Let's get into our topics for the episode, everybody. The first one, of course, being Axie Infinity and Gen 1 DeFi games. And of course, the big name when anybody thinks of when they think DeFi games is Axie. And somebody who is very involved with Axie and has built, communities around that generation of games, and obviously is moving into Gen 2 now, is Brycent. And I want to ask you, man, do you feel like Axie Infinity was a success? If so, why or why not? I'm just curious to know your perspective now that we're down the road from Axie being the big boy game everybody was talking about. What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting. I look back at like what we saw from Axie in the early days, and of course, there were tons of people who made money playing this game where you could, grab the assets and earn a little bit of their native token or currency. But on the other side of that, there were tons of people from retail gamers and those from retail audiences that lost in that same coin. So you're looking at a thing of you had people in one place earning, but people in another place that were investing with the hopes of earning. But the overall speculation around the game is where I think most of the downside came in. And ultimately, I do think that to a point, Axie was a success in terms of creating a world around a tokenomic economy, regardless of if they meant for it to happen as quickly as it did or not. But at a point, it did become, in my opinion, a failure in terms of, we saw the launch of a game and we saw the launch of tokens and staking and all of these things that ended up being a great use case for games to now look at and say, this wasn't the best idea. And me being someone who my Web3 gaming journey originated in Axie, I around December kind of saw the writing on the wall. I tried my very best to tell people that this was something that needed to be addressed, and the way guilds were building out and the way people were owning these assets. It didn't make sense for me. And for myself, it was like, okay, I need to take a step back and understand that this is a market that is going to be very dangerous if we continue to perpetuate tokens and staking and earning and all of these speculative ideologies over gameplay and creating a world where transparency ushers in a generation of DeFi related gaming products. Because I do think GameFi has a place in the overall Web3 gaming ecosystem, but we saw kind of a very high point in Axie and now a continuous low. So I would say a success to a certain extent, but more so a greater learning experience for the wider Web3 gaming world.
Got it. So what do we think? I'd be curious to know what you think, Rich. What do you think are some of the learnings that the DeFi gaming community and maybe game studios around the world can learn from Gen 1 games like Axie to bring into Gen 2 games? What are some of those like just dead obvious learnings or ones that maybe we haven't thought of? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, like Bryson kind of said, with in traditional gaming, even like legacy games, we don't have much. You're not holding the founders or the creators of these games accountable for much of anything. Like you don't have much say in how stuff happens. And I would say that's a huge difference with like DeFi gaming communities or even crypto in general. People have access to these founders, and it's all, we have DAOs now, so people have a lot more say in what goes on and what they expect of from the founders and the builders, and the communities. So it's not as easy as just not giving the founders not giving any information. Games coming out when they want, doing whatever they want. Like that's a big thing with Illuvium. Is like we're very transparent about everything that's done. Like we have Grant sharing stuff like every week now. Even it was daily before that. But I mean, like it's just DeFi communities are held to a higher standard now. With people having access. And being right there in the community, right at the forefront of the founders and all that stuff being built right in front of their eyes.
So there's an expectation now set by Gen 1 games and maybe moving into Gen 2 that you will get access to the people building the game. They will show you them building the game in progress, and you now have the there's not that legacy gaming to sort of relationship where maybe they give you a trailer leading up to launch, maybe they sprinkle a couple bits in there, and then they release some half-baked game, and then it's a surprise. The expectation now moving from Gen 1 to Gen 2 gaming is that you're going to be able to see how the cake is made the whole way through, so you know exactly what you're going to get at launch. Is that fair to say?
If I can add to that,
yeah,
I think on big learning from Axie, one of the really big learning is on the need for sustainability and the need for a game that people would play even if money was not involved. So I'm not really aware right now what are the amount of users in Axie. I assume it went down. But if we want GameFi to really, reach
well, hold on,
the
hit
level
pause there. I can show you the number of users in Axie right now. According to a website, I don't know whether this website is true or not, but according to axieplayer.activeplayer.io, supposedly there are 125,000 people playing right now, according to this, and 700,000 active players. So according to this, for Axie. So I'm not sure You
And it
know,
was 30 days ago and was millions a few months back, right?
Well, and to
right.
your
So
point,
I don't know how this has trended over time, but it's still
it's trended down.
it's not
D-
dead. Let's
down a
say
lot.
that it wouldn't be fair to say it's dead, but you know,
I didn't say it's dead. I'm just saying that technically there's one of the big point that is evolving a lot, and we see it, is a play to earn is really changing into a play and earn or play and own. And I think that's just the main way things can evolve and go forward, right? Because the money you distribute through SLP or anything else has to come from somewhere. So if you start to have games that are really enjoyable, and we'll touch then on what else we could have in the game later on, but the main thing is really getting a lot of people, but then having this possibility to just continue growing in a sustainable way without the need of having more and more people, so that you maintain the interest in like the financial aspect of the game.
that makes sense to me. I have to ask though, you know, as we move from Gen 1, let's call it franchises, and we're moving into Generation 2, where the Illuviums, maybe Star Atlas, maybe other games that are at a higher level of graphical fidelity and what have you are coming into play. Do we think that, and Bryson, I would love to know your thoughts, do you think a franchise like Axie Infinity that came out in the previous generation of games can stay relevant in future generations? Do you think that's possible? If so, how? If not, why not? I'd just be curious to know your take on that.
I mean, I just think it all goes back to public sentiment. I know, for myself and many, American-based content creators that stepped away from the game, like our ideology behind it is public sentiment shapes kind of the growth. And yeah, they can release things, and other games that also kind of suffered similar fates around tokenomics can keep releasing things. But when you think of the American public and consumer audiences that are the audiences that you want to bring into these Web3 based games, the things that they remember and now that they take into account from Axie are not the highs of Axie Infinity. It's not even, oh, well, they launched their own decks and all this stuff. No, it's, hey, you got hacked for 600 million. And Bloomberg put out another article that showed and depicted how many people lost money playing your game that also wasn't fun past a certain point for a lot of users. So, I mean, from my perspective, I think, yeah, they'll keep building. They have a ton of money they've raised, and I wish them the best. But I'm not keen, and nor do I believe that they are going to lead the gaming category throughout this this Web3 B2 revolution.
Well,
I think you're muted, Andrew.
Yeah, you're
I'm muted. I know Rich is extremely biased. I took a drink of water. I always mute when I do that. Thanks for letting me know. Rich is extremely biased because he's community manager for Illuvium. So you're out on this question. Charles, do you agree with that sentiment about Axie? Do you feel like the franchise and the brand, and it's not just Axie, any game that came out earlier, there's even like Splinterlands, and there's all these other games that came out that got player bases in Gen 1 DeFi gaming and obviously need to last throughout future generations. Do you think any of these intellectual properties that are in the market are strong enough to carry forward, or are new, stronger intellectual properties going to replace them?
It's really hard to say. I think the first mover advantage is always something huge. Now they would have to transform a lot and add a lot and create the type of game I was describing before, where you actually want to play it even if you were not paid in any way to play it. So I have no idea really what is on their pipeline, and if there is anything of the quality that is needed for that. Quality doesn't has to be just graphic. When you look at Minecraft and Candy Crush, you can make a crazy amount of money with games which are like not that crazy on the graphic side. But I think it's a hard transformation for them. Now the field is so it takes years to create new games, so the competition will take a lot of time to actually reach to a level of visibility that Axie already has. So I think they still have a chance to transform, but they would have to act quick and readjust. Not just on the graphic and game, etc., but actual on the tokenomics, right? On how do you transform? You were showing the curve of SLP, and I didn't look at it for a while. It seems that it's lower than where it was in 2020. How do you recover from that? So it's gonna be hard. Smart Mind could probably do it. We'll see what they do, but the competition is gonna be increasing for sure.
I mean, and like as Bryson was, or I mean, as Charles was saying, with the first mover advantage, like they also have like the first failed advantage. They they had a they had a good thing going. I mean, I got involved in Axie in the beginning, and I made a little bit of money, and then I kept going, and I lost some money. I was breeding Axies, and I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was basically just throwing money in a pit at that point, and it's and I think it got worse and worse. I eventually just got out of it, but obviously people that came in late, I think yeah, they're gonna have a hard time crawling back. But yeah, like Bryson said too, they do have money, so I mean, I hope the best for them. But yeah, it's gonna be a difficult road for them for sure.
Well, and to your point, I think some of the things that I take away from my time there was, yeah, you have all of this money, but you also have to take into account that money was raised on the backs of a lot of extraction by the way of scholars playing the game, but a lot of retail investment from gamers in those consumer audiences like North America, in Europe, and places like that were putting in money based on the certain ideology of this game providing some level of income. So I think for myself, I would love to see them come out and be a bit more transparent in terms of just apologizing for how shitty things got for a lot of people. Because it really, to me, makes no sense for games and ecosystems that we're building during these moments to come out and say, "Hey, we just want to let you know that we raised a lot of money, and we know this is a bear market, so we can use the whole bear market explanation as to why things aren't as good as they were back then." When we know it was more than just a bear market, and gaming within the play to earn space had been in a bear market for quite some time. But additionally, just say, hey, we had no clue things were going to progress in this way with our token, but we also didn't do enough to alleviate pain by letting people understand the risks of getting involved in this early stage. So we truly apologize. I think a lot of Web3 games that went into moments in the early stages where people lost a ton of money, you can't just attribute it to the bear market. Coming out and apologizing and showing a level of just pure, I would say, empathy for those people is something that I would love to see more games do.
I mean, that would be really nice for that to happen, of course. Emotionally, that would be good for the community. That would be good for the space. But the reality is, if they came out and made an apology like that, they would be in some way admitting that they made some economic or financial mistakes, which
That's
then
true.
means that they might be taking on billions of dollars in liabilities for global users, and then opening themselves up to things like class action lawsuits and what have you from the users if they admitted that they
Yeah.
made a mistake. So they may want to. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they do want to say they're sorry. Maybe they do feel they're sorry. But I guarantee you, whoever their legal team is, if they're worth half of the retainer that they're paying them, they would tell them that they could never admit publicly they made some financial mistakes with Smooth Love Potion, for example, and the idea of infinitely printing money. But hey, governments do that across the world, and you know they never admit that they're wrong either, right?
It is
Do
true.
central banks ever admit that they're wrong for printing money? No. It's all about, transitory inflation, and we're going to adjust things, and we got things under control. But you know what probably happens in those conversations as well? When they're having cocktails and burgers with their buddies, they know that printing money hurts the economy, but they can never say it publicly because they're just in the business of printing money. I digress. So it sounds like we've all moved on from Axie Infinity. Let's move on to the next topic then, building DeFi communities, something that's near and dear to the hearts of all of us here on this show. I have to ask, from a man that's literally does this for a living, what is different about building DeFi communities versus like centralized legacy online communities? Are they the same thing, Rich? Or is there anything unique in this space truly? What's your thoughts there, man?
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of touched on earlier, just you're expected a lot more. You have a lot of people that directly invested money. It's not as simple as oh, I bought Call of Duty. I'm part owner of Activision or whatever. It's not as simple as that. You have people throwing money at you and expecting something back. So it's a lot more accountability than typical communities that everyone's dealing with. Myself, our moderators, the founders, everybody involved in the Web3 projects. They have a lot more account, which is a good thing. It's a good thing, I think, for most projects. Um, uh, being transparent, forced transparency and urgency to build something, and wanting to build something good, like Grant always says, uh, they want to build the best they can, and it's not only because of them, but they also feel like they owe the community, the people that are there, um, the best that they can do.
It sounds to me like there's like a closeness, if you will, a connection in DeFi that you aren't getting through legacy corporations or companies. And I'm wondering whether this is going to stay. Is this going to stick? I mean, as organizations and games and studios get millions of users, tens of millions of users, hundreds of millions of users, do you think we'll be able to retain that closeness over time? I mean, Bryson, I know your community has grown over time, and you've seen the pressures as a content creator of once I go from hundreds of fans to thousands of fans to hundreds of thousands of fans, you can't be as close with your fans as it scales up. So do you think that DeFi communities or game studios or protocols are going to run into the same issue? Is that closeness and that transparency and that connection going to erode when those hundreds of millions of users come into this space? Be curious to know what you think.
I think that we will see a bit of space happen there. And it seems natural to me because as you scale up, it's just not like I remember in the early days, it was like 100 people. It's easy for me to interact with everyone consistently and respond to every tweet. Now I'm tweeting way less because it's just way more difficult to make sure I'm having a conversation with everyone. But I think you can still do a great job at managing your community by putting levers in place or things in place. Like, for example, having a Discord that's active and community managers and people who can speak on your behalf and breaking it down into almost like a hierarchical approach to bringing new people in and making them feel valued. Additionally, things like newsletters and even tweeting. Tweeting is a great way to interact with your community, even if you're not responding to every message. So it is much harder as you grow. And in the long term, you're not going to be able to chat with everyone, even all of your stakeholders who hold the assets. But it's those town halls and those moments where you're really interacting with folks that can keep the community still pretty high in terms of community sentiment.
That makes sense. As we look at every technology in history, whether that be Web 1.0 and then Web 2.0 and then now 3.0, are we going to follow the same trend where the companies and the organizations that create the smoothest experience, the fastest speed, and those are the ones that attract the most users. And those are usually centralized entities, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, what have you, right? Amazon is a great example. You don't have as a greater diversity of stores in the world anymore. Why? Because Amazon made buying things easier by centralizing everything in one entity. So the reason why I bring that up is that's pretty much how technology has worked since the information age started and the internet started. Centralized stuff is better than decentralized stuff at delivering speed and convenience to customers, and that's where the majority of customers go. So I feel like this is a good question for an ice cold corpo like Charles. I know you're not ice cold, but I'm just going to brand you that way. Can DeFi thrive, given that pretty much every example in the past shows that centralization tends to dominate as new technologies go to market? So do you think DeFi even has a chance here, or is it just over by the nature of technological adoption? What are your thoughts there?
No, I think it can really thrive. It really depends how you look at it also, and what is DeFi. So there's a pure word of like decentralized finance and not including anything which is not actually a protocol. But when you see that an asset manager like BlackRock now is doing a trust to buy Bitcoin and work with Coinbase to get people into crypto through their Aladdin platform. What you see right now is there's a crazy move from TradFi player into DeFi ecosystem as a whole to be part of it. And what I think is they will just merge. So both will continue to exist. You'll have stuff like Maker, which are pure DAO, totally decentralized, and you'll have other things which are a bit more centralized. I won't mention some protocol, but we know that they're not as decentralized as Maker is. And right now you have more or less 30 to 100K power users of DeFi and between 2 and 5 million user of DeFi. So it's really nascent. And they are, JP Morgan was speaking that they are looking to tokenize treasuries to bring trillions into DeFi so that it could be used as collateral and other things. So I think the two worlds are slowly merging. We see that with the adoptions of, there's a new part of DeFi that is just 12 to 15 months old, which is the financing of real world assets with DeFi money. So you got all those protocol like Centrifuge, Maker, Maple, Clearpool, Goldfinch, TrueFi, Taylor, etc., which are doing uncollateralized or under collateralized lending, and slowly it's just the two world merging. So now what is really interesting is how DeFi can be and probably will be included with GameFi. And one of the some of the podcasts I've seen in the past with somebody from Illuvium with Santiago was great, and I love what he was saying, and I think he's spot on. And it was last year, I think, and he was explaining how you got WeChat, which started like as a ripoff of WhatsApp, but then now on WeChat in China you have your money there, you order pizza there. So can we get to have a game which is really immersive, maybe at some point with virtual reality, but even at the beginning without that, and you start to interact with a lot of other things within the game. Even I think Kiran, I saw a tweet from him, I think last week, where he was mentioning how DeFi is basically going to be the bank of the gamer in GameFi, etc. And that's exactly what could happen. Like if you don't have, to pay a price for that, if you're really playing a game and you're in Illuvium all day and somehow you can just connect to Uber Eats and pay with the ease you just earn by selling whatever Illuvial you got or whatever competition, like Leviathan Arena fight you just did. People could do that, and I use Uber Eats as a random example, but it could be the same with a lot of things where technically you start, earning maybe through competition in those game or just selling in those game, and maybe earning is not the best word, but like getting some money from work you're doing or play you're doing, and then instead of, one of the big critiques that I receive when I present DeFi protocol to a traditional investor is on how complicated it is to get in, right? You say, let's say random example, you want to invest in Illuvium and stack it. Okay, you need a wallet. Now you need a seed phrase. And don't, all the risk around the seed phrase. And then you need to go into, first you need to get money in. So you need some centralized exchange account. It takes days. You need to verify. Then you need to transfer out. Be careful. If you got one character wrong, the money is not going to your wallet. Then you need to swap. Then you need to stack. That's all the things that are just too complicated.
It's ridiculous. The number of steps required, of course. Yeah.
And the first time I showed that to somebody, which is really, really important, he told me, look, that's really interesting. But most of the money in the world, maybe 90+%, is in the hand of people that are 65, 70 and above. They're not going to do that, right? So if we...
I can't even get my mom to make a Coinbase account. Getting her to get a DeFi wallet and go through all these steps, I mean, forget about it. It's never going to happen.
Hey, I got my dad hooked up.
So you got your dad hooked up with the hardware wallet?
Yeah. He's only 60, so he at least started.
Okay, once you get above 60, I guess it's impossible. But you're on a good rant here, and you're bringing up a good point that we need better platforms, tools, technologies, and support to make onboarding easier. The question I have here,
immutable, right?
Right. Well, immutable is one of those pieces. But the question I have here, if traditional finance is going to merge with DeFi, like you're saying, and I think you have a good view on this, you literally do this for a living, and they're going to does it really continue to be DeFi at that point? If almost all of the money coming from sovereigns, coming from, all sorts of funds, VCs, et cetera, all the big money in the world comes in to use DeFi technology, is it still decentralized if all of the centralized money and centralized entities are using that technology? Does DeFi still exist in the way that it does today, or does it fundamentally change? I'm just going to open that up to the floor here, right? Because now if 99% of the money in the world has yet to come into DeFi and come into the space, when it does come in, is it still DeFi at that point? I'm going to open it up. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I can start quickly to trigger. So first is what is decentralized, right? The platform, if we look at Ethereum, will continue to be decentralized. The protocol, when you look at something like Clearpool, they got permission pool and permissionless pools, but the protocol is or will be soon enough decentralized and end up being a DAO. So there are just different pieces. Like if you look at USDC, is that DeFi then? It's centralized. They can just stop using Tornado Cash. It's still crypto finance. It still worked on decentralized rails. And my view, and maybe yeah, it will definitely evolve and not be exactly the same. Everybody needs and is willing to have regulation. You know, when I got in, being a crypto native myself, and started to speak with all those protocol, because we spoke with all our traditional client, but also with all the protocol. One of the fear was, you know, how we're going to be rejected because we're, you know, the mean ice cold, as you say, TradFi. How will DeFi react to that? And actually, we've been extremely well received. Like everybody's looking to thrive, which I would differentiate from maybe the Bitcoin community, which care more about surviving whatever happened. Here, it's all about, okay, how can we get those trillions in? And how can we just make that the next platform for the next financial system? And some part will be more decentralized and some part will be less decentralized. But overall, I think it's really interesting and definitely a field of the future.
Yeah, I think it'll be a combination of both, like you're saying. Like, I mean, some of the projects that even, decentralized is kind of a term tossed around a lot today, and that doesn't mean the same for every project, and in the end, like you're saying, having these centralized systems isn't a bad thing for bringing in money. It's trust. People want to be able to trust their systems. Like you said, it's if you lose your seed phrase, I mean, that's pretty universal, that if you lose that, your money's gone. So having centralized exchanges feels safer for people, although, considering the things that have transpired over the past few months, like, we still have some room to grow, and some growing up to
That's
do,
one way to put
definitely.
it. That's one way. The room to grow is one way to put it right there. That makes sense. I want to ask one more question. I'm going to bring this to Bryson. Right now, we're all using Web 2 technologies, right? Even to do this call we're doing right now, and through Twitch and Twitter and YouTube going live here, we're pushing all of this Web 3 stuff, but we're still using Web 2 technologies and platforms and tools and what have you to build communities in this space. Is there a world? What does the Web 3 community building platform look like? Let's open up our minds. Are we just still going to be using this Web 2 stuff with video and audio and podcasting like cavemen? Or is there going to be a Web 3 version of this, and what does that look like? Or is it just going to be the same stuff? Because we do a lot of talking about Web 3 on Web 2 platforms. I don't see us talking about Web 3 on Web 3 platforms. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's weird because, I mean, even though most would consider Twitter like a Web 2 company, of course they're a Web 2 company. I mean, I consider them like the community hub of the metaverse currently. And like, that's where I go when I want to talk about anything happening in Web 3. So I see it as a hybrid approach. I don't think that we need to be looking at new social media channels or need to find social media channels that are only Web 3 native as a way to make us feel like we're in Web 3. But I mean, what's the purpose of it? If is it, every Web 3 platform has to have a token, or every Web 3 social platform needs a token, or is it just you having data or ownership over your data that you're providing on the platform? I think that we can have a hybrid approach of, if a technology or ecosystem play comes out that is something that should be leveraged, we jump into it. But I think we push ourselves further away from adoption if it's, we need to just make sure we find the only platforms that offer us a way out of what our Web 2 kind of our Web 2 strategy currently looks like. Because although we're very much in the world of Web 3, I don't see a world where these social media platforms or channels change. YouTube's always going to be the best place to ingest video content and then have that replayability. And that's just because we all use Google. Now, unless Google decides to completely stop taking everyone's data, which I doubt they do, because that's just in their business model, they're always going to be Web 2 native. So
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you might be kind of a boomer here on this one.
Really?
And yeah, I want to push back on that. So I was around for the transition from Web 1 to Web 2, and then I like really jumped into the space as Web 2 was emerging. And people that were in Web 1 or the previous world said the exact same thing you did about newspapers, TV, and radio.
Yeah.
Exact same argument. People are still going to read newspapers, right? Everybody laughed and went, ha ha ha, yeah. We're still going to listen to the radio, right? Ha ha ha, yeah. You're doing that right now with YouTube and assuming that people are going to be watching and content on that because that's just what people do right now. I don't know. I feel like you might be falling into the trap because you grew up in this space that
Well, I
you're
mean, we have
unable to see what
TikTok.
the next step looks like. You know what I
We
mean?
have TikTok, but TikTok's definitely not a Web3, or and it'll never be Web3. I think like where content goes is we start seeing everyone focus on more short form content because for the most part, we all have like the attention span of like a yard dog running around chasing cats and chickens. So,
That's
I mean,
fair.
I
That's
think from
fair.
the perspective of yes, new platforms may like pop out here, but I don't think they're going to like grab significant market share to the point to where YouTube becomes obsolete overnight. I mean, we might be 30, 40 years down the road before we see something like that happen.
Got it. So you think the entrenched players here in Web 2, the YouTubes, the Twitters, and what have you, these are lasting players, similar to maybe how radio as a broadcasting medium lasted for decades and TV lasted for
Yeah.
decades. You see like YouTube and the social platforms of today
Well,
lasting for decades?
Well, see, like the crazy thing behind it is they're just all consuming each other's own thing. So, like for example, we saw, Twitter take, spaces from how Clubhouse had their own little spaces world. Now, Twitter is like the leader in that category, just like Instagram, consumed stories that used to be, very prevalent for Snapchat. I'm sure they still are. And now YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. I mean, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok all have short form content. So it's almost like there's an arms race of social media platforms kind of battling each other to see who can consume as much outside technology that is trending within the attention spans of individuals. So, yeah, I do think there'll be another competitor, just like how TikTok came about. But I also think that these traditional platforms will just also look to almost like battle against it or, arm themselves against it to create a level of defensibility. But I do think, to your point, long term, there will be new things that come out and change this space as well.
One example, maybe just to
Go ahead.
unmute. So if you go back to the movie Ready Player One, which is always kind of used as this would be the metaverse. In that kind of world, we're totally agree. We're really far from that. Nobody goes back to outside of the matrix to look at an app on the cell phone. So now, if all entertainment was to go in some type of metaverse, maybe the content will be also there, etc. So there's just different way to look at it. So one would be this: if there is a metaverse, then maybe Web 2 would be in a bad shape because content will just be moving there in new kind of thing, which are just not a website or an app. And then there is
Hold on,
actual.
really quick. By metaverse, are you referring to a 3D immersive world? Is that what you mean by
Yeah,
that
in
term?
that case, yes. So to be able to replace something like YouTube, it cannot be a window within a game on a 2D screen. So that's like super futuristic kind of way. Then there is actual kind of DeFi angle on what if the content creator were receiving more or almost everything of the money that the page is receiving or the advertisement is receiving. I'm not totally sure of the number here, but I think YouTube gives back like 50% of everything they got from advertisement to the community, and that's why there's so many
45%.
45%. I think it's really good. I think that it would be really hard for some protocol to give more than that, and to the actual influencers, and also give to the token holders as revenue distribution and have operating costs. So in a way, Google is already, when they give 45%, they're already kind of acting like Google or YouTube. They kind of giving the revenue distribution that you would expect from a DeFi protocol. So and there was some, I forgot the name, Streamit or something like that, some protocol that did that in 2017, and I don't know where they are right now. So I kind of agree with Bryson on the aspect that just from a DeFi angle, it's going to be really hard to just give more compensation to get the creator in. But now in a huge metaverse, yeah, maybe.
I mean, like,
We are stuck really quick. We are stuck interacting with each other through squares and rectangles right now. And I really want to kick this one. I wanted to bring this one up with Rich here because you're living on Discord every day. So I'm looking at this particular square all day long, Discord, which is a huge, let's call it the biggest private community, if you will, of this world, of the DeFi world, DeFi gaming world. There's got to be a better way for us to interact with each other than through this square. Rich, what are your thoughts on the private community and the future of that? What is a better version of Discord look like for the DeFi gaming and Web3 space? Does it have to be this square with us just doing basic media sharing and what have you in it? Is there a better way?
I mean, I don't know. I fought against Discord for a long time, but I was also in Telegram, so a lot of people hate Telegram as well. But I think Charles makes a good point of, future wise, metaverse stuff seems to be where it's heading. And, with that, you even look at like I think someone in chat was just talking about like these old companies can just reintegrate into the Web3 space, like what stops YouTube from just inserting themselves into our whatever our metaverse looks like at that time, and even Discord, like, or all these platforms we're calling Web2 platforms, what stops them from just moving into the whatever the next phase is, if it is a metaverse where we're all in a highly immersive environment, what stops YouTube from being there, so I think, yeah, like there's I just I don't have a problem with Discord, I guess, but yeah, I'm there every day, like it's hard to see what the future is gonna bring for that.
Okay, that's fair. That makes sense. I just wanted to bring that up because it feels like such an early Web 2 experience to be on something like Discord. And when we think about this space, I think about what's the transformative technology going to be. If we knew, I suppose we'd be the Steve Jobs of whatever the next technological revolution is, right? Speaking of technological revolution, we've got to get into our next topic. Let's talk macro here. Let's talk about how the millions, tens of millions, and hundreds of millions come into this space. And I want to kick this over to you first, Charles. Will gaming in particular drive the majority of DeFi adoption? I've asked guys that are ridiculously biased, like Crypto Stash, this question in the past. He's like, absolutely. And everybody I interview who's like gaming only says yes. As somebody who's really looking at the macro and looking at this, maybe from a bit more of an objective perspective, do you think gaming's going to drive the adoption, or is it just going to be regular everyday stuff, like regular finance stuff? Let's say, for example. What are your thoughts?
I think there's like the biggest thing of all is the tokenization of everything, which more and more, really big player believe is happening and is convinced is going to happen. So it means tokenization of real estate, tokenization of derivative, tokenization of intangibles, and tokenization of everything that you have in the financial market, also securities, etc., which then allows for fractionalization and the creation of even more derivatives. So I think that's one of the really big thing and all the real world asset. Now, GameFi for games in general are just ridiculous industries when you look at how much money they get, right? It's amazing when I look at how much money Fortnite is making selling skins. So, and I actually have a friend in Japan that spent $600, and it was before kind of DeFi, on getting a red cape for a 2-day game on a phone. And he just tried until he got the red cape because he wanted the red cape. He spends $600. He earns maybe 3 times that a month, but he was happy at the end because he had the red cape. So there's definitely something there. Plus, how much more would he spend if he could sell it later on because it was, play and own, which do not exist really right now. So,
well, similar to collectible card games, which is maybe the closest physical world or real life example close to what you're talking about, where you open pack after pack after pack. I used to go to card shops in the 90s as an old guy, and people would do literally that. They drop $600 to try to get the Shaquille O'Neal rookie card. So that sort of gambler mentality has existed for a while. And obviously, if you can have it as a collectible that's worth money, that adds fuel to the fire. But people just want to gamble for things they like, no matter what. It's just kind of baked into our psychology, right?
Yeah, but it's more than that. It seems that Gen Z is way more into that than any generation before. And just think that there is all those kids which now are, not that much of kids. Everybody that played Fortnite as a kid and asked for Christmas gift to get some credit to be able to buy skin, it's just in their blood right now, right? So it's definitely something that if you can make it easy enough to interact with, will get a lot of traction and will generate a lot of money and will be a big industry. Will it be the biggest industry of all? I don't know. I think there's also a really big thing in the world, but it's definitely very big thing. And then there's another aspect, and it's what has been discussed a lot around NFTs and how it is a Trojan horse for decentralization. Because a really big difference between an NFTs, at least now, and tokens is you got a lot of people that say, yeah, of course I got some ETH, etc., and they all have it on centralized exchanges. Now, all the people that got into NFT, and it's a really different audience that started this more or less last year. Most of them, if not all of them, almost got it on a real wallet. Right? You don't have an NFT on Coinbase or Binance. You have an NFT on your wallet. So it got people to really get in and got the experience of interacting. And now I got some friends in New York that are going to NFT gated um, wine tasting in some New York places. Yesterday or the day before, we saw that Eileen, which is a protocol done by Kane from SNX, they're starting a seed investment gated, also NFT gated with ETH Lizard. So there's definitely something which is changing just in a way of everything work. And if you got a game or a combination of many games that just create something that is really immersive and you can just do most of what you would do on your computer or phone in it, yeah, it's gonna be just huge. Like, who really enjoy home banking? Like, is it an amazing experience when you go in your home banking? What if it was just part of a game and everything is smooth and
Are you
you can
home banking? Are you talking about using like an app so you don't have to go to the ATM or the bank? Is that what you mean by that?
yeah, just sending money to your sister or paying your bill. Like, it's
Oh
not the
yeah, I mean,
most
going to a
amazing
physical
experience.
bank is ridiculous at this point. I mean,
Terrible.
I have to go from time to time because I have a business and they make you go into the physical place if you have a business. But outside of that, as a individual, I mean, there's literally no reason to go to a bank unless you're maybe trying to apply for a loan. And even in that case, there's like 15 platforms online. You can click a button and you get the best rate, and you can click another button and you have like $100,000. So it's pretty wild. You don't need to. Home
But even
banking
the
is everything now.
Yeah, but even my point was, I totally agree. But my point was the platform of home banking are not something amazing in the sense of you love to interact with them. They are convenient, but if you can get in some type of metaverse or some type of game where you could do some of this while not leaving the game, there's a lot of data provider that did everything they could so that you don't have to get out of their platform, and
I
it has
see.
to see. It's kind of the idea on
I
if you
see where you're
can.
going. So if you're
Yeah.
already in the game and hooked on the game, then you might be able to bring in financial services or these other items in to expand on that ecosystem and to if you've already got the attention of the user, you're saying through a game, then maybe all those everyday normal financial items would be handled through that game ecosystem. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and let's say I'm somebody stacking Illuvium or is expecting to get an entry of money in 2 days because there will be a revenue distribution, but right now you don't necessarily have it. You need to pay some, you know, electricity bill, and you can just do it by taking automatically a loan from, Clearpool or Aave or anything like that through the game, and you don't have to really think of all the mechanism behind it, and it's automatically taking your loan, paying, repaying. There's a lot of things that can be done to just simplify life. You got all this concept of buy now and pay later, all with app now. But what if you could just do it through also loan and NFTs and a lot of different things? I think it's really, everything is nascent. There's a great podcast video from Raoul Pal with one of the CryptoPunk where they explain how you could just have two old people in the south of France that got room 203 of a hotel for a weekend, and they bought it for $300 or euro. And then you got somebody that just finished a big contract that did not book any holiday, but now you can go on holiday. If this reservation of the retired couple was an NFT, could just bid on it for twice the price. They don't care because they can go in a month. It's the same for them. They made money and now they can stay longer, or they just got some
I
money.
see. It's a
But
more
what if it was
dynamic
just
financial
easy
interaction.
within
Yeah.
within a platform that people are using?
That makes sense. I see on this topic, Bryson, I see you stroking your chin on Twitter, thinking about how we get this space out to more people all the time, and you're just tweeting your thoughts. And I like your thoughts because you're good at being a normal person in the way that you think about this. So I want to ask you this question. Why would users want to use this complicated DeFi stuff we're talking about with the wallet and the security and what have you over CeFi or other centralized structures? Like, don't people just want speed and convenience and ease of use? Why are they going to go through all this trouble? Do people really care about security, or are they just going to go for the easy thing? What are your thoughts there, man?
I think that most people are fine doing the easy thing. It goes back to the whole idea of most people not having the attention span. I mean, when I first jumped into Web3 and I realized how much stuff I had to do, the first week I actually like stopped doing it. It was like, I'm not doing this crap. And then I came back a week later because I was like, maybe there's something here. And I just kind of endured the pain of learning it. But I mean, I personally think most people would do better with some sort of custodial person or ecosystem taking care of the difficult inner workings of wallet stuff. So almost like a hybrid approach, not completely centralized, but also not completely decentralized. I mean, think about it. How many people need to be able to navigate and store 40, seed phrase words across 5 different wallets on 4 or 5 different blockchains? Most people probably shouldn't handle that. I mean, I probably don't handle it in the best way myself. So it's like,
yeah, I don't either. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like the everyday user probably doesn't need to handle that part of it. I know for myself, like if there was some ecosystem or custodial wallet ecosystem that came out that was like, hey, we will 100% will never touch your funds, move your funds, do anything with your funds, but we will handle the storage of your seed phrases for you and do some other things. I mean, I think that would make more sense. But I do think that DeFi has
but could you ever believe them though? I mean, because a government could come in and say, well, you're either arrested and in jail, or you could go ahead and let us get control of all these funds. And they go, here you go. Here's all the keys. I'm going home to my family, says 100% of people.
Right? MetaMask institutional and some other custodian are doing exactly that, mostly focusing on institution, because institution do not want to do exactly everything you said.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, but MetaMask can freeze wallets, right? As we've seen in stories. So it isn't truly decentralized. Yeah. It's somewhat decentralized, right?
MetaMask institutional is like a different offering with a blue.
I mean, do we ever get to a point where things are truly decentralized? Because I mean, to your point, MetaMask at one point, they were stopping people from certain countries from interacting on certain platforms or sending and receiving crypto.
So that's what I'm referring to. And so I understand institutional is a different product from MetaMask, but does it have the same protections, or does it have an impenetrable protections from them blocking in certain ways the service in certain countries?
No. Once you got a custodian, well, you're just tied to the role of this custodian. But like, it really depends what you do with it. If you're trying to do something that is illegal, then yes, getting a custodian is probably not a great idea. Now, if you just want to play a video game in which you could interact with DeFi, then it could. So something, and I know it's one of the topics you're interested in, is around how government and regulator are looking at the field. And I spoke with the SEC, I spoke with the FCA, I spoke with the AMF and different like that. And part of my team is going to Washington next, I think, in 2 weeks. There is a lot of lobbying. You got the Blockchain Association, you got different associations like that, which are really trying to teach and bring literacy to staffer and help as much as possible. And then you have, and that's one of the amazing things you have with DeFi and crypto right now, is nothing is bipartisan. Like there's huge clash between the left and the right in most countries. It's true in France, it's true in the US, it's true in Latin America, it's true almost everywhere. But for this, you have a lot of bipartisan initiative in the US. And you got Senator Loomis from Wyoming and Senator Gillibrand from New York creating this bill, trying to enable the field. Plus, you got the executive order from President Biden. So there's really a lot of things moving here, and with regulation, everything will really change. So if now you have a kind of safe regulation, at least in some jurisdiction, then the use of custodian is not the same kind of issue that you would have. And when we look at MoonPay and IMX, I don't know exactly how it would work, but they did mention that you could just buy and sell and get back the money from your ETH through just credit card. And I spoke with some other, I forgot the name, but I spoke with some other game and some other platform. And what they're doing is basically they hold the wallet for you, so you don't have to think about anything. But if you want to take ownership of it, you can at any point. And I think it's probably one of the things that will happen, right? First, you need to get people in. Players that hate NFTs, players that hate DeFi, you get them a good game. They don't need to think about it's on the blockchain or not. But then when they want to do something else, they find out that their Fire is worth X amount of money. And suddenly they'll be way more interested in the field, and you just converted them.
So it's right. It's the opt-in to the ownership side of the asset. So you could just experience the game for the entertainment. And then if you want to opt in to owning the assets and the whole wallet and what have you, then you can opt into that. And during a transition period, that totally makes sense. You made a comment a moment ago of you only need to worry about custodians if you're doing something illegal, right? Until the government determines what you're doing is illegal. So it's possible that the government might determine that DeFi games are illegal at some point, or some games are, or whatever. I'm just saying, making the assumption that legal versus illegal has you covered. Yeah, until the government doesn't like what you're doing and they make it illegal. So
True.
I don't trust the government.
I got that. The interesting part here is that the government at the end of the day care about voters, because that's how they got elected, and that's exactly why now you got many senators and people in Congress that are just pushing and doing the reflection around what should be done around DeFi in general, because it's not just for them, it's also an international competition. Like you got basically all the country looking at how can they, be number one there. Australia is doing well, Singapore is doing well, Switzerland is doing well. The FCA now they're out of the European Union. UK is really trying to see how they can, get access and become important there. Also, you got MiCA in Europe, which is far from perfect, but it shows that they're thinking about it. So if you get to a point, and that's the order matters, but if you get to a point where GameFi has hundreds of millions of players and you're not really doing anything illegal, related to something which is really, really wrong, you cannot just make something that everybody's using illegal without expecting to not be elected on the next election and stay there. And that's a good balance you have in democracy. I'm pretty, initially I was thinking more like you. Now I'm pretty bullish on the fact that there are a lot of reflection and a lot of big player pushing and helping and lobbying so that DeFi will be a thing and will stay. I think overall it's agreed that DeFi is not going away. So, I'll try to share this bullish view.
It's my job to take the counterpoint on your view to make it an interesting discussion. Boom.
Okay.
We're going to go around the table. You guys have to instantly tell me the one thing that DeFi gaming needs to do better, the number one thing, and then tell people where they can find you. Rich, I'm putting you on the spot. Number one thing DeFi gaming can do better, and where could people find you?
Making a fun game that people just want to play, just to play it. And you can find me on Twitter. It's at Dick Kings, in case you guys didn't know who I was. So
he is the Dick Kings, indeed. Bryson, number one thing DeFi gaming can do better, and where can people find you?
To Rich's point, having a fun game to start and then having a go-to-market strategy that is effective. And you can find me on Twitter at Bryson_.
Highly recommend following that Twitter account. It's one of my favorites. And Charles, one thing, let's just say DeFi in general can do better. And where can people find you?
Okay, cool. I was going to answer for the GameFi. And
okay, GameFi. What GameFi can do better? Go for it.
The on and off ramp, making them as easy as possible. And I think you get a lot of people in just like that, complementing this with what was said before to have a fun game. You can find me on LinkedIn, and so I'm sure there'll be the link in the description.
Got it. And my answer to the question is I just think we need a game to go mass market, to get hundreds of millions of players, and to prove out to the entire gaming industry that this is viable. Then guess what's going to happen? Everyone else is just going to copy paste what they did. And then all of a sudden, this multi-billion-dollar industry will explode. We just need one player to be successful. You know who I think it's going to be. Thank you so much for watching Eluva Talks this week. We really appreciate it. We'll be back once again next Wednesday, same channels, same time. Really appreciate all of our guests. And on YouTube, there's a link in the description. Please follow all of their accounts and let them know that you discovered them from the show. We really want to spread the love out there on social media. Adios, everybody, and have a great day.